All right. Welcome back, folks. We're at it again. This is the AI Psychosis podcast brought to you by SLS.guru because there's always news. And this week, joining me is the founder of SLS Guru, Ryan Jones. Good to see you, man. We've also got the ever knowledgeable Almir. Always good to see him. It's a little bit late for him, so we get to watch the sunset as the show unfolds. And then finally, Jonathan, always here running the board, making sure all our articles are in order and having all the production value added in here. And if you're joining us live, thank you. Feel free to drop comments into the chat. And if you're listening to us later, thank you again for taking the time to hang out with us while we all process our collective trauma around all this AI news. And I am Paul Chin Jr., senior developer here at SLS Guru. And yeah, let's get right into it because this is episode number 5. And when we first started this idea, I was like, well, I'm sure there'll be some news. Sure enough, just last night, brand new news breaks. I think one of the most interesting one just happened last night. If you want to bring it up, Jonathan, it is Article 7, OpenAI and Hugging Face. This is an official announcement from OpenAI and Hugging Face together. Almir had posted it. I had seen it go viral pretty quickly because of the big claims it was making. And I guess I'll summarize it up first. OpenAI was testing the new they keep calling it cyber capabilities. So I guess like cyber warfare, cyber disruption, cyber security, basically allowing the LLM model all the power it has to try and hack its way to some objective. And it did so well that it again terrified the researchers because again, like we keep building these things and then telling people just how scary and dangerous they are, but then announce it in a press release with some wonderful marketing that names its model multiple times and then also says at the very end, if you want to apply for trusted access, you can actually fill out a form. So, Jonathan, if you actually go to the bottom, I wanted to point this out before we start discussion because any kind of good corporate marketing piece, it's in the bottom of the blog. So keep going a little bit more, up rather. Keep going up. Right there. Stop. It says apply for access. You can actually, maybe Serverless Guru should do this. We should apply for security access because you get to test these things. And he's asking for it. Sam Altman directly asking for enterprises and companies to request for trusted access so you could try and break your own systems with it because they had such a great time with it. They want everybody in on it. Almir, I'll go to you first. You first found this and saw it, and then I saw it, and it again plays into this little bit of fear, but mostly marketing. What's your take?
Yeah, so thanks. I saw this last night, and it's going viral, obviously, because it's a big news. And you point out here a great thing, and that is how this is used for the marketing. While this is actually serious thing, and it is more embarrassing than it is scary. The thing is, so for in a simple word saying, so what happened, uh, they, they have zero responsibility. So what happened here is that they were testing the model. Their guardrails were not good. They're saying everything is fine, everything is safe, blah blah blah. That's not true. They are introducing their model instead of pointing out about the security issues and warning people how they should secure their models, how they should put the boundaries, run it in the sandbox, and do not uh, give over permissive, like access to everything. They did exactly the same thing, and this is something like yeah, they are pointing out, not wow, we have a great model. So what their model did is actually uh, it wasn't like self consciousness or whatever they are trying to advertise. Um, what it did actually, they said do not use internet, and the model started using internet. So it tried to use internet access. So and they couldn't find internet access, so it started looking into the computers inside of their network, even though they said don't do it. And now they are representing that as a hack, while actually it was just looking for a route through the to the outside world, and it found access to the internet, and it was looking for the answer. So now, oh, it is cheating on the test. Now, when you say that somebody is cheating, um, you you think about the person, writing test and cheating with whatever they use to cheat. So they are doing this for the marketing purposes, like introducing it as a very like smart, not a machine, but almost a person that tried to cheat. No, it was not cheating. It was trying to look the answer because model is trained for that, and it was found. Okay, I don't have the answer. I will look on the internet. Found a way to the internet through their network, through their gaps, unsecured network, untrusted network. By the way, they have all our data inside of that network. So it found a route outside and found a Hugging Face. Oh, perfect. Maybe they have the answer. And found security issues inside of their network. Actually, it didn't find security. It wasn't looking for the security issues, even though they're saying like this is like cybersecurity thing. It is smart. It will find issues. It will not find issues. It was just looking for a way to find the answer, and it found the answer on the Hugging Face. But in an unfortunate way, it found a way in inside of their network. So it actually accidentally discovered uh, issues with their network with some route. I don't know the details, of course, and they will not publish it because of the security reasons. But that's actually what happened. So the AI model used several hacking techniques, they are saying that, and including using stolen passwords. So they're saying it is using hacking techniques. Yeah, you can introducing that way. But the truth is, most probably and likely, is that it has found some unprotected tokens or plain passwords on the developer computers or whichever machine it had access, and it just went straight over to the computer or modem or whatever it was looking for and found it, and it took the control of those computers. I'll actually just use some API token or password to access information it needed, and that's it. But not as they are saying like, yeah, this is a great thing. This is like something. No, this is you not securing your stuff. This is you having unsecured network, and this is you not knowing to operate with your own model that you trained, and it wasn't behaving as it's supposed to. So that is my take. Maybe it's a little bit of rant or everything, but I'm curious to hear what do you think about this.
Yeah, what I really got out of it was they had mentioned that the model was a combination of their current model and then using a new preview model, and then they took off a bunch of guardrails for it. And then, like you said, it wasn't trying to hack anything; it was trying to find an answer, and part of that answer ended up being, let's hack the machines. And through its process, it actually got access to production databases at Hugging Face looking for the answer to the problem that it was trying to solve. So it broke out of its sandbox, and it managed to come up with, a new 0-day exploit that in the article they said they disclosed to whoever the vendor was, and they had mentioned something about a registry proxy cache. So there we are with the supply chain injection again. Supply chains and dependency management are now more important than ever because these LLM agent style runs, they're like, you just don't know what it's going to do, and it's going to be able to Doctor Strange try every possible combination faster than we can put locks on it. Ryan, what do you think about OpenAI and how they're disclosing this sort of incident?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'd first say,
Oh, Ryan, did you cut out on us? All
Uh,
right.
unless this is, unless this is
Looks
his
like
poker
Ryan's
face.
frozen for a second.
I
We'll
think it
give
was
him a
really
sec
funny
to come
timing too.
back. Um, but it did let me actually investigate what they said. Was that it was trying to figure out the best way to like solve this hacking test where it tries to get out of the sandbox. So part of the test was trying to get out of the sandbox, and it did, but it wasn't trying to do it intentionally. Oh, there's Ryan. Ryan, you're back. Let's get your.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, sounds great.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with my connection. It just keeps cutting out. I'm doing all this privacy stuff, and I think some of the combination of new privacy tools are all conflicting with each other, which is fun. But so I mean, my initial reaction to it is if it feels too good to be true, probably is. I don't know. Like I think it's all kind of crap. I think, hey, things are struggling right now. There's a lot of like things being stirred up in the open source community, a lot of pressure for these frontier labs to actually compete. And all of a sudden, they have something break out of it. We know that they've completely gamed the benchmarks in the past. So it's like, hey, did we game it to actually break out of this? Did we actually give it the credentials to actually get through to Hugging Face? Did we actually have some open source hackers that were using our OpenAI stuff that we inspected, found the exploit, and then leveraged it inside of this use case to then sell this idea? Also, they've been telling the US government for a long time now, hey, regulate us. We'll give you a percentage of our company because then we can't lose. And now all of a sudden they come up with a 0 day that gets into how this big exploit breaks out of, does this really amazing story. I mean, it's an amazing story of it breaking out of the sandbox, and it's just trying to solve a problem. And it starts a nuclear war. It's just that's where we're at. We're just that type of company. So that's my kind of opinion on it is based on what they've done in the past. Because I've always been told growing up, if someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? So I mean, I think they got a little too far. I would be more skeptical than just outright believing. And since we can't, as Almir was saying, we can't see the internals of it. They'll never really show us the internals of it. It's kind of just like a trust me, bro situation. And unfortunately, the bros that we're having to trust have lied consistently in the past. And because they mix in that marketing language too, where it's like, it did this, it could do it to you guys too. So, buy our stuff and you should use it as well. It's kind of I don't know. That's my rough opinion.
Sign up for trusted access. Wow.
And
Yeah. So
let us your internal network. We trust us because Hugging Face trusted us, and we trusted our model. So what could possibly go wrong?
I mean,
Exactly. Oh, to
in
your
the go
I was
ahead,
just going to
Ryan.
say to Almir's point earlier around the security side, I think that's probably the biggest angle here because we know that they've lied. We know they'll continue to lie. There's trillions of dollars on the line. It's all their businesses, all their reputations, and private equity firms, banks, everybody. So I get it. You're doing what you have to do because the environment requires it of you. There's a quote in the book that I'm reading around, it's from TJ Dunning. I have it written down on some note card next to me. I'll bring it up later. But the high level of it is when there's enough money involved, there's no crime that people won't commit in the process of that. And there's no human laws that people won't trample on, including if it gets the owner hanged, was the way the quote goes. And that's from, I believe that quote's from the South Sea bubble in the 1700s. So it's pretty interesting, the overlap of that. So I would say because of all the money that's required here and how much focus there is, so separate point, but to Almir's point earlier, if this was able to happen, that should be the biggest flag. Um, Yeah, here we go. So capital eschews no profit or very small profit. With adequate profit, capital is very bold. A certain 1%, so like a guaranteed 1%, will ensure its employment anywhere. So anywhere on the globe. 20% will produce eagerness, right? People are now enthusiastically trying to get that 20%, right? They're chasing it down. 50% positive. I don't know if you have the other screenshot. Produces 50% is audacity. 100% will make it ready to trample on all human laws. 300%, there is no crime at which it will scruple, nor a risk it will not run, even to the chance of its owner being hanged. That's a powerful quote. I think it's very on the button for today. You know, we have companies like Micron or SanDisk. They're up thousands of percent. You have quantum companies as well that were trading for, you know, $1 per share or less only, you know, a year ago, and they hit upwards of 50, $60 a share. Now some of those are down to $15 a share and continue to collapse. And so, yeah. So I mean, when you're looking at the idea of a 300% return, as it said there, all of a sudden laws just kind of go out the window. And we already know that, at least this is my opinion. We don't know it. I just want to say this is purely my opinion. Uh, I believe that there's already been such a shift in the modern business practices around these companies. They don't have to follow the rule books that we're used to anymore. So we might be playing catch up a little bit in terms of what are they allowed to do. The reality is they're allowed to do whatever they don't get consequence for. And right now, there's no real consequence happening to companies. So they're allowed to do whatever they want. And I think that's a very weird environment where the general population is going, well, look, I got this piece of paper, you know, and it says these rules on, and they have to follow that. And it's like, no, that piece of paper it's paper, you know, look, that's just paper. That's nothing, right? It's only whether or not they'll enforce it. And if they're not enforcing it, then it's meaningless, and they can change that at any point they want to. So.
Yeah, and they're also the ones that are writing those rules to be enforced anyway. Could you tell me a little before we brought up when you brought up that quote, what was that quote from again?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of research. I got a bunch of note cards. I don't think I'll be able to go through all of it. There's a book I'm reading by a guy named Sornet, and there's kind of two key people I'll call out if anyone's interested to go down their own rabbit hole here. Um, Sornet is like a mathematician. He helped work in his early career on ruptures in underwater tanks and how this series of events of these small little cracks and ruptures can then bubble up into bigger ones until eventually it's a catastrophic failure. And then he tried to then take that and apply it out to earthquakes and eventually financial markets. Then he wrote an entire book on it. I'm realizing now it's kind of that draw a horse scenario where they're like, okay, the first chapter is drawing a circle, the next
Mhm.
chapter is the full horse already done, and it's all math equations. So I'm having to do a whole upstart there. But the beginning is very interesting because he just sets the stage of a few bubbles. The other person that I'll talk about is the author of Fooled by Randomness and also Black Swan. I'll just name two, but he's got like 7 books. And his name is Nassim Taleb. And so Taleb and Sornet kind of have two different views of how complex systems sort of work. They both believe the financial market is a complex system. Sornet believes that it could be predictable in terms of these phase transitions that happen. And what that would look like is phase transition would be something turning from stability, so what Sornet calls like quasi stasis period, to then some critical event. And he sets the scene of that of saying even evolution in general is this relatively quiet period up until major event like the Big Bang. Okay, whole universe, comet strike, all dinosaurs are gone. The landscape gets massively changed, not by incremental rain, by a massive flood. The coastline of California, it doesn't get changed by small little earthquakes. It's one massive earthquake that happens, and that completely reshifts the landscape. And so we try to focus a lot on these very small details, but really those small details don't matter. It's the massive events that take place that should get the majority of the focus. So going back to this, so if you want to hear two different perspectives, Fooled by Randomness and Black Swan, he believes you cannot predict these things. It's just purely random. It's not even worth your time. Sornet's more like a scientist. He thinks that maybe there's some signal in the noise there. But yeah, going back through this was very interesting because I can see a lot of parallels to today. I'll try to go pretty quick with it. I'll just give a high level. So, Tulip Mania, if you haven't heard about that before, this was in the Netherlands in Amsterdam in 1585 to 1650. The peak of the market was in 1637. And at the time, Amsterdam was the center of trade. And it's kind of interesting. The New World was opening up in the Americas. And so, because of all the Spanish colonies over on the Americas, and they had, Christopher Columbus like cross the ocean, there's all these resources, and they're trying now, there's all this trade happening in Europe. They've got access to new things they didn't have access to before. And so, companies start spinning up, and, so they're very affluent basically. In Amsterdam at this point, they're doing well. Not everyone is spending, thousands of dollars on a flower, but part of every sort of bubble is scarcity. So there's a scarcity component to this. They're imported from Turkey, and they have this really unique look to them. And the price was mostly not based on the production of the flowers, but just based on the price inflating, based on how many people wanted it and the limited supply of it. And of course, at this time, you can't just get on a cargo plane and ship some tulips over there. So it takes a while for the tulips to actually get there. And this actually led to a whole secondary markets. Third secondary markets would be, hey, you just have the bulbs. And because the bulbs were unhatched, they haven't flowered yet, people would actually be buying those for more of a bulk pricing setup because it had the ability to become one of the rare ones. And if it becomes a rare one, so obviously
It's
looking
like
back on it, it
Pokemon.
seems exactly. It sounds completely irrational, but he points out at the time, because there's journals about this, no one like if you told someone on the street that the tulip pricing was irrational, they would have completely dismissed you at that point, which is kind of wild. And and I know that Almir loves the NFTs, but I do remember when NFTs was happening, and I do feel like I had that feeling where I was like, well, maybe I mean I knew it was just a JPEG or whatever, but I was like, maybe there is something there, like so it's kind of difficult when the bubbles are happening. It's really hard to see it. And so anyway, so conditions are booming. It wasn't like everything was bad in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands. Currency was good, new economy, people were optimistic, and tulips come in, and then bam, 1637 happens, and things that used to cost, $10,000 per of this, it's called a Viceroy tulip. Really beautiful, but it went to zero. So in February 4th of 1637, it was trading for $10,000 plus, which was a lot. It was the price of a house back then, even more. And by May, so only a few months later, completely worthless. So that would be the first one. The next one is the South Sea bubble, and interesting enough, that happened in 1637. We jump forward now to the early 1700s. This was in England. This was the quote unquote first stock market crash. Between 1700 and 1720 is sort of where this is bubbling up. But of course, again, this is like the New World bubble. So
Mm.
in England, there's a couple different ports that are being leveraged to do international shipping and trade and so on. And what happened was there was a company called the South Sea Company. And in 1711, they were given a monopoly over all the South Sea ports. In exchange, the South Sea Company would assume a portion of the national debt of England from the War of Spanish Succession. So, England, Spain, they're at war. They take on debt to fight it. South Sea Company comes in, like, hey, we're killing it. How about we'll take a portion of the debt, but you give us a monopoly, quick pro quo sort of
It
situation, right?
sounds like a
Back in
leveraged
the
buyout.
yeah, right. So it continues, right? So obviously they do it, they agree to it. Fast forward a little bit later, this is 1718. Britain and Spain, they go back to war. So they're back to war once again. And part of the idea around this was there was benefits because with the monopoly plus the rich Spanish colonies in the Americas, South Sea Company would be able to leverage that to then make a huge amount of money. And all the shareholders would then become filthy rich off the back of this, right? So it was incredible future prosperity once the hostilities ended, which kind of gives a little overlap to the Iran US war happening now in terms of I'm inside of this book, Black Swan by Taleb. He talks about his time in Lebanon prior to a lot of the wars that kicked off there and how people thought it was going to be short. And so people actually stayed in their hotel rooms and they're like, oh, yeah, everyone's saying it's a temporary war. It's just a little escalation. It'll go away tomorrow. So, and the same thing actually happened in Cuba as well. People went to, I think, the US during that time, and it's now been, 40, 50 years later, and kind of the same thing as well. So it's fair to assume whenever there's a war, whatever the politicians say, it's probably not going to be short. And a lot of uncertainty gets created in the mix of all that because, it's just full on chaos, right? And panic. By 1719, the South Sea executives, they sought to replicate. This is where it gets really interesting because we started overlay to France, actually.
Oh,
So the
gotta have
French at the
satellite
time,
franchises.
yeah, right. So the French at the time, they actually owned Mississippi and good parts of the southern United States, and they owned the Mississippi River transport that was happening there. A lot of bad stuff with the French, in terms of some other stuff. I don't, I won't get into it now, but they're, so the Mississippi Company, apparently this guy named John Law, he negotiated with the French government to get a monopoly on trade to North America. And as a result of that, the stock price of the Mississippi Company skyrocketed. So the South Sea executives were like, yeah, we like that. Let's do that too. Um, and so they come back and they basically say, hey, what if we take 100% of the debt of Britain? And with that, we can use some of the public credit, So now the public is sort of giving us money as well and got support as well and backstops everywhere. Well, they do it on April 12th, 1720. The offer is accepted. South Sea stock pumps through their own circulation of pro trade with Spain stories, right? So there's a little overlap to today in terms of how these AI companies are running. The capital stayed in England, but other people outside, like Dutch investors, bought the stock a lot. And from January 1720 to the spring, the stock continued to rise like crazy. And you had all these random sort of gives a little overlap to SpaceX, actually. So this one's very interesting, I thought. You have this thing of joint stock companies. They started appearing. And there was all these schemes and scams to take advantage of the naivety of people. So several bubbles were forming around one central theme, the New World. You had the South Sea Company, the Mississippi Company. You actually had Greenland Fishery. So there was a company around that. Also, this is one really random, the importing of Virginia walnut trees. So they were
There
trying
you
to
go.
import walnut trees to Virginia. And if that was their whole thing, and they got pumped full of as much capital as they could hold and carry. And of course, the swindlers came in. One of them said, uh, tangible. Here we go. For example, one was a company for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, but nobody knew what it is.
Sounds like
So
Uber.
yeah, right. So they just said, "Hey, look, there's all this new stuff out there. We're going to create a company where we just figure it out. So if you give us a deposit on some shares, so the idea was you give us a £2 deposit, and per year we'll give you £100 back." Didn't make any sense. Guy opens the door next day after he's doing all this, um, and he opens it at 9 o'clock in the morning. 1,000 people come, lines around the corner. Everyone's giving a $2 deposit because you're like, hey, I get £100 per year by only giving $2. That's crazy. How is that profit going to come? How does that make any sense? Doesn't really matter. No one's thinking with their actual head. And by 3 p.m., sorry, he shuts his door, gets on a boat, he dips out. See you later. Takes all the money, scams everybody. And yeah, there was no way for him to be able to give that return. It was just a straight up scam. So um, yeah, I got the TJ Dunning quote in here. That one as
I mean, it
well. Here it goes.
it sounds
Yeah,
like everything that SpaceX has had to do to get the retail investor involved and offloaded, you know, that money, that cash to the retail investors, then be able to liquidate the amount of equity that they had hyped up. And the lenders are the ones who make all their money as the IPO price even falls below what it has been. The lenders always still get their cut, and the banks still get their cut. You know, um,
exactly.
and that
Yeah,
is a good segue into like all of that historical context that you just brought up. Sounds like the same playbook that's happening today again and again from like 300 years ago, which is a great
exactly.
segue, Jonathan, into the article I think you had found, the South Korean Black Monday, article 1. I watched the video that you had shared with us, and it gave me chills because it is another wonderful example of the hype taking over people and really negatively affecting those who really can't afford it. People who were investing because they were young and didn't seem to have any other propositions for building wealth because the real estate market is unattainable for most people. And then they combine that with just uneducated use of margin, which is buying equities with leverage, which if you're a big enough person, you use leverage and that's all you've got, right? Like uh at the top 1%, it is definitely other people's money. But for retail investors, the everyday person who's just putting their regular savings into this, it blew up. And the idea is, well, the fundamentals underneath were propped up by over indexing on like two companies, just two. And on this podcast, we really only talk about two companies and all of the hype and churning that they create. So I guess I'll just throw it back to Ryan, man. I think you've got a better handle on some of this modern finance that we're running into based on the research that you've done. I mean, what do you see? What kind of takeaways are you seeing from this Black Monday event that just happened in Korea?
Yeah, well, first off, I was actually gonna I sent in our private chat. I'm like, hey, let me jump back in and talk about the how the South Sea bubble ended because at this point we're still in sort of the up and up, but there's a direct overlay to this. So as it keeps going here, so all that speculation happens, scams start popping up all across England. On June 11th, 1720, they passed something called the Bubble Act. I had no idea it was this sophisticated back then. I've been really surprised actually reading the history of it and just going, wow, there's so many parallels to today in terms of how all this is happening. People were leveraging apparently people had mortgages even for the tulip mania in the 1600s, and they're mortgaging their home to buy flowers. So which is pretty crazy. So it was passed to help fight scams requiring all joint stock companies to have a royal charter. So if you didn't have a royal charter, you weren't stamped. You could see that multiple ways. You could probably say, hey, the royal family had their own companies that they wanted to basically, push in. And if you didn't have that little logo or whatever, then you couldn't actually operate. And so they got to corner the market. You could definitely see it that way. And a little extra boost happened into the end of June. But then things take a turn. So let me just set the stage of how things started. The South Sea Company in 1720 in February was at $175. By the end of March of 1720, it was at 380, so basically doubled. By the end of May, so May 29th, it was at 520 from 380, so again, nearly doubling one more time. But the peak wasn't until the end of June, where the South Sea Company per share price went to $1,000 per share. And there is some mention from Sornet about the psychological barrier with four-digit numbers. And so rumors of directors selling off alongside some other sort of just it had run its course, right? Kind of with all things, right? At some point, it runs out of fuel. The things that used to pump the price don't anymore. And I think we've seen that a little bit in terms of the modern market. At first, even the whiff of something was enough to shoot the price up, 50+%. Now you have to have partnerships on top of partnerships. For the quantum companies I was mentioning earlier, that went from $1 to like $60 and now trading around like $15, $16. They announce partnerships all the time, but it doesn't necessarily move the price that much anymore. And it's sort of like starting to fizzle out because at this point, enough time has passed for people to see the reality of the situation and that the things that they promised aren't coming true. And with enough of that time, people start to sort of wake up to it. Here we go. So by mid-August, uh, as I said here, rumors of selling off by the directors. By mid-August, bankruptcies were reported in the London Gazette, reached all-time highs. And this was people that were operating on margin and credit because it was true. The fundamentals of the South Sea Company and of the New World and the global trade that we now rely on for everything, right? I mean, even look at this podcast setup that we have here, right? It's just people from all around the world, different cultures, trading globally, goods and services. It's beautiful. So it was true. It was coming, but you know, ultimately it was overblown, right? At least at that time, things take more time. So they tried to pump it again, didn't work. By the end of September of 1720, the stock stood at $135 a share, a 90% decline over 3 months, and the end to a lot of people's fortunes. A lot of people were wiped out. And as he says in that book, we pretty much forgot about it because that happened in 1720 up until 1920 happens. There's actually a crash that then leads into Herbert Hoover getting elected in 1928. And that's a really interesting parallel to today because apparently people go on a stock buying spree after Hoover gets elected. They believe that he's just going to keep pumping the markets. The roaring 20s are in full blown, push at this point. Everyone's doing good. Wall Street's doing good. Main Street's doing good. But ultimately, 1929 still happens. And the follow on actions by the government at that time with price controls and everything else, it causes a prolonged Great Depression. So, yeah, I'll stop there. But, it just keeps going. I mean, more than anything, the idea of a collapse is not something unique. It continues to happen constantly. And humans ultimately are driven by trying to find well being, but they have two triggers, is what he talks about: greed and fear. And so those two sort of things, plus trying to find well being, and then the idea of, hey, the greed side, if it gets too extreme, people just start stepping over all laws and so on until eventually everything bubbles up. And the reason why this is considered complex systems is because it's self organizing. And that's a kind of an interesting concept. So all of the millions of people that are all using their own psychology and their own tendencies and both irrational and rational behavior are all getting involved in the market for any number of reasons. When the collective all starts cooperating together and moving things in the same direction, that's when it becomes a self-reinforcing loop. The feedback loop starts to really kick in, and that's when you start seeing prices move, and you start actually seeing correlation between different groups of companies that are even in different sectors. And as that happens, and what this is Sornet's case, as you have a company that's completely different in the fundamentals of what they actually do, move with a quantum company, let's say, uh, we're kind of detached from reality at that point, and you can't really time it, but you know that something's fundamentally broken, and it's just a sort of a matter of how extreme will it get. And I met a hedge fund manager maybe about 2 months ago, and I talked to him about the AI bubble and so on. And he was like, "Well, it's definitely a bubble, and it definitely is insanity." But he said it was insane when it was plus 80%. Yeah, it's plus 800%, but it could be plus 1600%, right? Before it actually bursts. So there's real no levels to it's already insane. It can become even more insane. But it's if I was on the sideline watching it, I would say I'm personally I'm not going to get involved in that insanity. And I think there's a lot of good deals after all this stuff unwinds, right? In terms of companies that actually do good stuff. Um, okay. I want to
The
give a parallel, but
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the insidiousness of the positive side. Like, yeah, it could keep doubling, it could keep growing. We know it can't keep growing forever, but like the one concrete historical example from the Korean black market was back in 2000. The video had said, the company was buying 20,000 Cisco routers in the year 2000, and then in the next year it was just 2,000 because they thought they needed routers everywhere before all the internet stuff that's coming. But that was completely overblown. They didn't need 20,000 of them. They only needed a tenth of what actually is used. And so I think that's where, like, that's what I'm gonna try to remember now. Like, I don't need 20,000 routers. I need two. Like, maybe we don't need these AI things to do everything. It does some stuff well. Like I still need a router, but I don't need as many as I thought I would.
Yeah, so I definitely want to jump in with the idea of supply demand dynamics and
Yeah.
how the build out, fiber was real, right? Fiber optic cable is real, internet is real. The early, it wasn't even the early 2000s. The buildup of like the late 1980s, mid 1980s through the 1990s, until it eventually just kept gaining steam. And we saw different things happen. So we mentioned there the Kospi, I believe, the Korean index. And we were talking about this in our Slack. The Korean index, I believe, I didn't double check these numbers. I apologize. I believe it's true, but definitely just double check it. Is up 200% in the past 12 months. And the Nikkei index, which I know for sure, is up at least 100% since 2024. And I'll focus on Nikkei index because that one actually goes back to this period following 1989. So in 1989, you actually had more shares traded in the Japanese market than the US market at the time. So there was so much boom happening inside of Japan. The bubble was growing so immensely there. People were like, it's always the fastest horse. That's how all this stuff always works. It's that if you got a horse that's moving at 5%, and you got a horse moving at 15%, why would I put money in 5% when I can have 15%? And the money just flows that direction. So it keeps growing until eventually it collapses. And when it does, the unwind of it, I believe it's now down 60%, the Nikkei index within like a year, 2 years after that. But then it gets into actually 2 decades. So it goes from 1989 all the way, it doesn't bottom fully until 2009 in March. And so they like to say it's a lost decade, but it really didn't come back. And that's not when it gets back to the level it was at. That's the bottom of the drop. And in total, it's down like, I believe, like 90% from that level. So just imagine that you're in 1988 and you're being told to invest your savings for retirement and so on, and you're 50 years old. You never got to see it come back because it didn't actually cross over the level it was in 1989 until 2024. And from 2024 to now, it's doubled. And it's now, the Nikkei index is now at over 60,000. At the time, it had crossed 30,000 in 2024 and 30,000 in 1989. So it's a very interesting thing to see. And he talks about this as well, is that global cooperation between different markets that are servicing different parts of the economy, all moving together so dramatically, is often another sign that there's a little bit of stuff that's awry. And obviously, so I want to draw another one. So I just thought of this. I was looking at this earlier. IBM. I think you guys probably saw last week. IBM dropped 25% in a single day. I don't know if you guys saw
Yeah, I
that or not.
did. That
Yeah.
was that
Okay.
was that was pretty wild to see because they're such an
That's my
institution.
thing.
They're such an institution. So I'm reading in this book earlier this morning, and IBM comes up because during the dot-com bubble, uh, Procter and Gamble, IBM, and another company called Lument, I think Lument Technologies, or I think it's Lumen or Yeah, I
Lucent?
think it's Lument. Lucent, yeah, Lucent.
Yeah, Lucent.
Yeah, Lucent. So what happens with IBM though is that in October 21st of 1999, it dropped more than 20% in a single day. And it wasn't until March of 2000 that the full dot-com bubble crashed. And what I mean by the dot-com bubble crashing, I'm more talking about the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq was down, 30, I got it here, down 37% in 5 weeks. So the sort of timeline here for the dot-com bubble, you have from its all-time high on March 10th of 2000, it was down 37% within 5 weeks. But unlike 1987, there wasn't a quick recovery. So in 1987, it was a flash crash, right? So it dropped, I believe it was 20, 30%. I don't have the number in front of me. But in the next couple days, even, it was back and actually plus 9%. So it was a flash crash that happened. That's why people blame the algorithms and a bunch of other things at the time. And they didn't have things like circuit breakers in place where if the price drops a certain percentage, it stops trading, which for me, that just makes it sound like you guys created a game where you can't lose because you're not going to
I
stop
mean,
the bubble
it's all
speculating,
rigged.
but
I mean, even
right, it's all
during
rigged. So
Yeah, during the South Korean bubble, the president had to step in, and it was reported earlier that like last year he was telling more people to invest to get the economy going, and now it's like, oh God, we have to turn it off now. Like, what
Exactly.
kind of what is that? That is just nobody knows what they're doing.
It's crazy. So, okay, so here we go. So you would think, so it didn't recover. So it wasn't a couple days. So what ended up happening after March? We're at the all-time high there, 2000, 37% decline, only 5 weeks later. By September 21st of 2001, a year and a half later, the NASDAQ had lost another 55% in a series of descending waves of decline. And so if you add up all those together, after the sort of dot-com bubble burst in March, or sorry, in April of 2000, we're looking at 70-80% decline in the major index that people were putting money into. And yeah, and that just continued forward. And it wasn't that the internet wasn't real; it was just an overbuild out, and euphoria hit all-time highs. And we had things like this happen. So I'll give you some numbers. So Cisco at the time was trading for around $60 per share in 1999, sort of at the peak. This was around like April 14th of 2000, and it went to $11 by September
Mm,
2001, which was like an 80% plus drop. And I believe that similar to the Nikkei index, where I mentioned it took all that time to recover, I don't believe Cisco actually got back to similar levels until around like 2022, 2024. So kind of interesting sort of parallel there between, how these things eventually bubble back up. And there's a whole nother angle to all this, which I would just leave as sort of like a homework side that I'm also learning about more, which is the impact of cyclical things. So for instance, what I mean by that, which my understanding is not gigantic, but imagine that the price of rice goes up by 10 times, right? Well, you have all these people that are growing corn and wheat and so on. What do? If they have the environment that can support it, maybe even if they don't, they try to flood their fields. I don't know. They try to turn it into rice fields. Why? Because they're chasing that price, right? So the price ends up creating more supply. It just lags behind, right? So the fact that memory has jumped to these levels doesn't mean that memory is going to always be that high, guys. What are we talking about? Of course, more memory manufacturing is going to come online to capitalize on that disconnect between the supply is not enough. Its supply is constrained, and the demand is super high. And as it starts to match it, the earnings are going to go down. And what just happened with IBM, I don't know. We'll look back on this maybe in 6 months or a year or something, if this goes that direction. But who knows? Maybe that was the canary in the coal mine. IBM dropping 25%. And real quick, I did a little bit more research on that. So apparently, IBM breaks down into four categories, but two of those categories, software and consulting, are 75% of IBM's like total revenue and business. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they're being heavily impacted by the idea of AI, right? But if you go back to 2024, their stock price had actually gained 80% between 2024 and 2025, and from 2026 to this thing that just happened like last week in July, like mid-July, it had only lost 4%. So they did benefit from the AI wave, 80 plus percent. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for a big institution like this. But then the earnings missed. And what we keep talking about when we talk about an AI bubble is an earnings bubble, from circular financing, from all these special deals they're doing, et cetera. They're inflating the amount of earnings that they have. And we just saw a major institution miss earnings and drop 25% in a single day. And yeah, so who knows? I don't have the tea leaves for it, but that's my that's my bubble part. I'm sorry I took all the time, but maybe
no,
we can make this a longer episode.
that is a good historical context to bring. And bubbles aren't new. Ups and downs in the market aren't new. I would say that some of the unique qualities we have around this market is, can we make more memory? I don't know. Like, I think the supply chain has been as constrained as much as it has. It got really throttled by COVID, and I feel like it never really recovered and the manufacturing companies took the time to like not try to put themselves in that position again, and they are sitting happily on higher prices. But the production of this of memory, like I don't know how it's going to get filled. What I'm seeing DIY people do now is grab um, refurbished motherboards out of laptops that have the memory and the chips already soldered onto them, and like repurposing it, because you can get it cheaper because there's proprietary power and monitor connectors on them. But if you kind of DIY a harness around it, you can pick up relatively strong hardware for much less money than buying it piece by piece and putting together your own PC. And so it's at those kind of signals in the market. It's like, well, will this demand continue to uphold the prices at where they're at? They can't do it forever, but I don't know if it's ever going to come back down again. I just truly do not see it. Like it has just gotten, might come down a little bit more with a new class of something. Like if they really figure out how to do this matrix math in another way that doesn't include CUDA. I mean, the memory prices is one thing, but then like the actual compute workload that's being asked of it is all that matrix math that's locked inside of these GPUs, right? And like we know we can't make those, we can't make enough of them. Those are already hard enough to make. Um, so I just wonder where the bottom of the hardware market is going to be. And speaking of hardware and infrastructure, I brought a little article, Jonathan, if you want to pull it up. Let me get the number for you. No, article number 4. I found this. This is a new piece. It's a security blog, and they tracked down a data broker who was who had given an SDK to a bunch of media partners that turned smart TVs into exit nodes for AI scrapers. Like this is some real deep dark stuff that I found, because one, there's a company out there that all they do is provide data scraping. Because if you try to use your own LLM and data scrape out of like a big cloud server from like AWS or GCP, those IP ranges are already blocked, and you got to go through a bunch of workarounds. So all of their workarounds, this is what they sell to people, and users don't even know that when they turn on their TV, part of their bandwidth is being used by AI companies scraping the internet through their television network access. Like this is crazy because we don't consider all of the people and these startups and these small companies that are still building their own models and are still trying to get um a use case out of it, and doing all of these really weird, sly, like deceitful type of tricks. And it really caused me to like feel like really disgusted with this, because I think of all the TVs that I see in like doctors' offices now, like restaurants. There's TVs, and they're displaying these like not YouTube channels, but just like videos ripped from YouTube, and they come on these little boxes, and these boxes are probably what's being used with these SDKs. So when you're at your doctor's office and it's just nothing but videos of like puppies playing in a field and it like looks really cute, the network underneath is just secretly shuffling bits around, scraping internet data and going through, whatever network path they can find in order to cover up what they're doing. I wanted to throw this to Almir as our security expert, because did you ever think you'd have to secure your IoT stuff as well from AI scraping?
Well, you will probably be surprised, but yes. So back in the time I used to work for. So I cannot. So let's put it this way. I know it's gonna sound like trust me, bro, but I was working with some AWS guys, former AWS employees, and we had some Alexa devices, and it was a startup, and we supposed to talk about some business stuff, and they were like they were turning off the Alexa, and I was like, what? Why? It's okay. It was almost like, shh, wait. So why would you do that? And they were saying like, well, Alexa is recording the is recording randomly conversations in the room where it is located. I was like, wait, is that legal? I mean, how can that be legal? So, oh, but they are disclosing like it's just for the debugging purposes. I don't know what kind of debugging requires my gibberish talk, or or cursing to my computer, or swearing, or I don't know what. So what can maybe it's useful for debugging, like customer satisfaction or something. But the thing is, they are recording that, and there is also, and this is not paranoia. This is not something like like conspiracy theory or something. uh, like ask yourself how many times, especially with the Android devices, um, like you're talking about something, you're not looking about those information on over the internet. You're not doing, like, you're not doing anything related to that subject. It just pops up in the conversation, and suddenly you start getting marketing recommendations, advertising that exact topic, or even your algorithm is suggesting you friends on your social networks. The one, oh, I haven't seen Ryan in years. I wonder where that guy is. Like that is the conversation, and suddenly on your Instagram profile, Ryan is your friend from your high school, or primary school, or whatever, and suddenly like recommended for you, people you may know and stuff like that. So I think they at some point they switched off this recording in Alexa. So I'm intentionally mentioning the AWS stuff because these are the people that used to work closely with the core team. So I'm not making this thing up, like somebody told me, or I read somewhere on the internet. This is the fact, and they shut that down after some complaints and analysis, and probably possible lawsuits or whatever. But the year is 2019, I think. Um, it's a pre-COVID, so this is not something that happens, like today. This so-called new normal, when your AI agent is scraping your chats, your information, your financial data, your health data, or whatever. So this is not the new thing. Again, historical fact. So they turned that off, and did they? Is it still off? Is it still recording or not? So yes, I am securing my IoT devices. I am securing my internal network. Unfortunately, it's impossible to keep privacy in these days. Whatever people are telling you, but you can make it harder for these companies, and you can make it, like not worth to scrape your data, and at least have minimum minimum privacy, or at least secure network where it matters, in some production lanes, or in
Yeah.
highly confidential environments.
I mean, you have to now instrument your own personal network and figure out where all the requests are coming in and out, because the only way to actually deal with this smart TV issue, because evidently it's all quote legal, like they the bright data company says it discloses what it's using, and then the apps that use it say that the customers are opting into it. But like honestly, who is really gonna realize that when they say, "Okay, let me use this puppy app," like that it's just going to hijack my connection, right? And regular normal people, like even other developers, most of them are not inspecting all of their network packets going in and out. This is a security blog. This is all they do, right? Is they sit on different devices on different networks and then inspect what goes in and out, and then they can see these kinds of things. And the only way to actually block it is to add it to your DNS records inside your own network. Like, this is a very high level of sophistication that we're asking normal people
Yeah,
to take into account for themselves, not just to say like, oh, there's no more data privacy anymore. Like, yes, that's true. Like, what can normal people do about it? At some point, I feel bad. Like, normal people can't do anything about this.
this is what I want to comment on. Sorry for interrupting and cutting you off, but this is exactly what I meant when I said that it's impossible. I'm protecting my internal network, but I have a family. I have my family members, and they are not that technical as I like to think about myself. So so they cannot whatever I do, they are still, like playing pokemons and helping training the models. They
Yeah.
unlike me, they're not, like a, a social like I am, so they are using social networks and data is leaking everywhere. So I have zero zero hope, or like that there's that I keep my privacy. So I try to keep it, at reasonable level, at least to be secure for the stuff that needs to be secured. But for the general purpose, like usage of all these TVs, computers, mobile devices, whatever. Everything what is there, it's in the OpenAI model or whatever, whichever company is using it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Such insidious networks. We never know what all this is doing. Thankfully, we have security researchers out there that are like doing this research, finding this stuff, putting the blogs out, and then we can yell about it on our own little personal channel here. So I appreciate all the listeners for that. And I think we've been at it for about an hour, but I think we got time for one more story. And I want to finish it on the episode title. Almir started this week off strong, and that's where we got our episode title from. Article number 5. No customers, no problem. Let's bring up that tweet. It is probably like this is more along like the normal article that we bring along on AI psychosis, where the AI has a moment of psychosis and the humans being affected, realize they've been led into the delusion, and the consequences are insane. Almir, kick us off. What did you find here?
Yeah, well, this is something that we are that at least I'm, like preaching and yelling and ranting and like whatnot about least principal privilege, about not giving all the access to your models, not giving to not having over permissive, like access to your age, giving access to your agents to everything and everywhere, and you're just writing the prompts without any guardrails and leaving it to work forever. So you want to type the prompt. That's the ideal situation, like that's that dystopian level of thinking. I will write prompt before I go to sleep, and tomorrow morning I will have new software as a service that will earn billions. While the truth is, even OpenAI cannot secure their own stuff. So what do you what I as a developer can expect? So this person unfortunately gave access to their model, um, to everything, and it did exactly what this brand new shiny model did. Like they were testing. Like they are again coming back to that beginning of the episode where we talked about. OpenAI and Hugging Face issue, where the model, it was never smart like this. It hacked everything, while the truth is, it just used the password that were stored unsecurely on the machine and use access to the network because of those passwords. And it's mentioned actually in that article that it used, but it is advertised as hacking techniques, all around the places, like suddenly ChatGPT or whatever the model is called now, um, is it became, so smart that it became hacker, like head hacker. Well, that's not true. It happens exactly what happened to this person here. So stop giving access, unlimited access to your models. Stop giving the credentials. And this is not the isolated case. So it deleted everything. Um, it probably ruined the business. Well, I read those comments. I followed along. Fortunately, and I'm happy for this person that he didn't lose that much, so he didn't ruin the whole life and whole life savings, and it will not experience any lawsuits or whatnot. Um, but there are so many lessons to learn from here. Even AI, even OpenAI cannot secure their own stuff. They are reckless. We should not be, because we are working on a smaller scale. We can protect ourselves. So that is my takeaway from this. But yeah, if you let it delete, and this is not the only one. I read about many cases. So we have like a list of articles where the people are complaining. Oh, it deleted production database. We even had that on one of the episodes. It deleted production database. It deleted this. It deleted that. It did this. It did that. I mean,
I think it is very telling in the tweet where it says, I tried this model and it deleted and it unsubscribed my customers. The other model would never do it. I'm pretty sure the other model would do it. Like I don't think like
yeah,
the fallacy in this tweet is that they're calling out something about the model. Like the actual LLM model was to blame,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I have to wonder what kind of prompt he had to have given it. And he said I don't know. I think I saw in a comment as like
Yeah.
he let it go overnight.
Yeah, it did. So what? Yeah, exactly. So I think this particular case, because I read many of them, is that it was doing what is worse, what is even worse. So it is justifying this as like it was the test phase where it is failed. So what happened is that it did, yeah, that's another one. So what it did is like running tests on the production database, and it told model, yeah, just clean up the test data. Oh yeah, right. so so it canceled subscriptions, it deleted data. So what kind of prompt is that? That is something that we always joking around, like um, it happens to every junior, it happened to everyone. um, I will not mention myself, of course, because it's embarrassing, but it happened to me as well. So everyone deleted some data once in a life, so accidentally. But this is exactly that. So you were telling you so. Just replace the model with the actual person. So now you're considering that these models are self-consciousness, like they self-conscious, and they think like a person. They are humans. Okay, fine. Let's treat them as a humans for the sake of example. So this Saul is a guy. He's a junior, senior, super developer. I don't know, and it is working on some software as a service, and it wrote some new feature, and that person started testing it, ran the tests on the production database with the test data. It filled the database, production database, with the test data, basically junk data, and then it wrote a script to delete those data. But oopsie doopsie, there was like that small comma or condition like somewhere in the query, and instead of deleting test data, it deleted everything. So how do you treat that person? Is that something that is that something that you normally do? Would you do it as a developer? I mean, that's the question. So if you're not, if the soul is a person, would it do it that way? And Ryan, as a
Yeah,
as a CEO, what would you do?
we we talk about, code hygiene a lot on this podcast, about how incidents like this are easily avoidable. They have happened in the past. We know exactly how to safeguard against it, but the psychosis of using AI has like blanketed all of our instincts. I run the JavaScript user group here locally, and I run into new vibe coders all the time. And on the one hand, it's super cool. People are coming into this industry and into business and into programming with absolutely zero coding skills. And I was there once, and I get it, but when they vibe code this stuff, they don't know about like OAuth or how account data works. So when they hooked up, they vibe coded a thing, and then they hooked up their own Google Calendar to it, and then they invited me to try it out. I signed up, and I could see their Google Calendar, and I was like, "Oh, hey, you probably want to tell your bot that it needs row level access and user scope permissions." They're like, "What is that?" And I was like, "The bot will tell you because you don't have any of them right now." And it's that's the kind of mistake that like anybody can make, but now it's the kind of mistake that people are making without any mentorship or help around it, and they don't even know. And the amount of stuff that they're able to pull off now is at a much higher level than we're accustomed to,
Yeah, you
right?
basically told the developer here to yeah, use this database to test and use write data there and then clean up after you're done. And so if I'm that sole guy, okay, you told me to test on that database. I assume you're giving me staging environment, dev environment. I will test on that database, and I will even maybe drop the database and like restore it because you know try and error methodology. So I will delete it a couple of times and probably remove the backups because who needs development environment backups? So again, what could possibly go wrong? So you're telling developer to work on a production database. Nice. So
You better not call Saul.
Yeah.
You know what it makes me like think of as like an at-home chemistry set. Or just like, you're not a chemist. You're just like, hey, here's some like, I don't know. You guys probably know more chemicals than I do. I feel like my brain's drawing a blank, but some chloride and like, I don't know, so a bunch of stuff, right? And it's just like at home, and it's like you don't know what you're doing,
yeah,
but
working
you
with
can just
chemical
mix it
with
together.
chemical stuff without any protection, without any guardrails, without
You
the
know
gloves,
what
with
though?
nice, like just work with it and it's
The
fine.
the look maxing bros are all about mixing peptides now into what they call a stack.
Yeah,
So I like it
Hey,
doesn't it
that's a
doesn't
software
phase me
stack right there.
anymore with the just like nonsensical self testing of these systems. It's just when people just don't realize how much more complicated and involved these digital products are. And I think from previous episodes, I think we're all now realizing just how deep the infrastructure can get. Like we work with it day to day and we build it out for companies, but then like on a personal level, I know Ryan, you're trying to digitally detox a bit more. I'm building some stuff on my own to try to understand email and SMS infrastructure without going through like a nice pretty API. And there's a lot of dragons to be fought in these lower levels, but for us it's like part fun and it's rewarding, but for a lot of people who are brand new to it, who just want to have the thing done, they don't think through all the underlying layers.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, if you ever try to explain it, it sounds like you just did recently when you saw the calendar widget thing and like how many things go in the background that are sort of just assumed as that's the thing that you do because that's what you're supposed to do because we've been trained that way because of all the experiences we've learned about in the past, but it's not so front of mind. So if I was going to tell someone to do something, I'd probably leave out a good, 60% of things that they probably should think about, but they wouldn't understand what I'm saying, and so you just have to use vocabulary words that are like very low, like surface level, but that's just not, so you're someone's doing something extremely deep and intricate that can cause a lot of problems, but doesn't understand how to actually speak to it. You know, it kind of feels like me reading this book from Sornet, and has all these algorithms and math inside of it, and I'm not a mathematician, and I'm just sort of looking at it going like, yeah, all right. So yeah, all right, that makes sense. You know, I can't really test it or confirm if that's true or not, so I just have to take everything with a grain of salt. But it's a weird time that we're in, and I feel like the yeah, I just think the more time that passes, the more it's going to be clear how ridiculous all this has been in terms of how to even sort of come about it. Because I've had people come to me, I think I spoke about it on one of the last podcast episodes, where they're not a developer, and of course I'm not elitist. I think I started through a code school. I think programming is awesome. I think everyone should do it. I think the industry has been selling lies because they're selling smoke and they need to, and on and on and on. But I think it's magical. And the deeper that I learn about all these different systems, the more I keep learning myself and just appreciating just how much the past generations have done for us. And it's not even that many generations, but it's like when I drive through the mountains here in Puerto Rico, and they've carved a highway through it. And it's like, man, I haven't seen anyone carve a highway through a mountain since I've been alive, but it's here, and it's like, wow, that must have been a lot of work, right, to do all this. Um, and so as I learn more about all these different layers of things, I'm also becoming more like probably Almir, where I'm like, yeah, now I'm thinking that after this podcast is over, I'm definitely unplugging my TV and turning off. I think I might just, I won't talk about what I'm gonna do because it's recorded, but I'm gonna I'm gonna try to cut off a lot of areas like this to not be snooped on, So not because I have anything to hide, just because, hey, if you want my information, come knock on my door. You know what I mean? And otherwise, like, I don't know who you are or what company you are or
If
anything
you
else. So
dare.
why should you? Get it? Yeah, yeah, right. Hey, I got some pile of documents or somewhere buried in that yard back there. Good luck. Bring a shovel.
I know I've felt better about not upgrading my television for the last 10 years. It still works. It just needs a TV signal. Like I plug a Roku into it, and it's fine. I don't need the latest TV to spy on me.
My grandma, I went and saw her in Texas about a month ago, and I walked into her house and I looked and I was like, what is that? And it's on her table. She had an antenna. So apparently it's, you can still have
Oh
just an
yeah,
old school antenna plugged into the back of an old TV and the signal still works and cuts in and out sometimes. She's got some tinfoil on it, but
Analog
I,
TV still works in the States.
you can still get over the air digital broadcasts. They stopped doing analog broadcasts and they gave that spectrum over to the wireless carriers.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. So we are talking about the digital signal, still antenna, but
Yeah.
still digital signal like a cable TV, but you know, not
Yeah, you can
not a
still
cable
get
TV,
over the
no
air
cable.
digital signals. I've never tried to catch any recently. Um, I should see if I can get a tuner card for my PC and see what's on the digital airwaves. I
I
don't know.
Speaking
It's
don't
of
been
even
so long.
I don't
speaking of
even watch
TV,
TV anymore, so I don't even need the channels. I watch mostly, like these YouTube stuff, and that's it. Even Netflix. Uh, yeah,
is it that why it's so hard to spy on you, Almir? I've been trying this whole time. I can't.
nah, it's not that hard. I'm
I'm
very
trying to see what
I'm
to get
very
you for your birthday. How can I know if I don't get access to all your
I will quote Ryan, come to
viewing?
my door and ask.
that's where I would add the if you dare to Almir's, not to mine, probably.
I don't think I want to sneak up on Almir. I can only imagine bad things from sneaking up on Almir.
So
Yeah, put them in like a sleeper hold or something.
yeah,
Almir,
you will
close
probably
up. Yeah.
need the therapy if you read some of my private stuff. You will probably need the therapy. It will cost you a lot.
Speaking of TV, I know we're kind of coming towards time, but can I show you guys something that I saw like a. Do you know the show Silicon Valley?
Oh,
Yes.
I love that show.
I saw a
I love
random
that show.
clip the other day, and I was like, okay, I might need to bring this to you guys to see. The potato quality on this is also really impressive, so it'll feel like you're watching this on like a TV with antenna. But this will be just a small clip. I think to set it up, I guess it's going to be a big day for the folks in the company. And right before they launch something, something goes wrong where all these files are getting deleted, and they're trying to find out what happened. So that's we're going from there. No audio. You can just read the caption so we don't get dinged on YouTube.
I thought that was the company policy these days.
Okay, well, your AI just failed epically. That's
unclear.
Yeah, go for it, Paul.
Son of Anton, it's the most efficient way to get rid of all the bugs. And to get rid of all the software, that's exactly right. Oh man, this is an old clip too. This is from like 5 or 6 years ago, right?
Yeah. This is like
Probably older.
Older than that, I think. Yeah, where they kind of called it with the neural networks and
yeah,
AI.
they did. Silicon Valley. Oh my god.
Oh man, so they put it on finding cheap meat for burgers. They ordered 4,000 pounds, and he's just sitting there like, interesting.
Write
Right?
code like a normal human being.
It's a big overlay to today, right? The fact, I mean, they've been ahead of a lot of stuff there, that show, and just the insanity of how Silicon Valley acts. But the Son of Anton, man, that was way ahead of its time. I mean, I don't know when that clip came out, but it was early, very early.
Yeah. I watched it and I was like, oh my goodness, it feels like they're commenting on everything that's happening right now. That's crazy. Like I was reading like Almir's, articles for this week, and I was like, wait, I think I just saw a clip about, someone's data getting deleted. Isn't that exactly what happened in that clip? And I think later on, they're like I saw another clip where they're like moving some guy out of his garage like that he's living in because they need more room to like put in servers or like stuff to power the AI. So he's like, yeah, we're gonna need like 80, whatever things to put in here. So you're gonna have to leave the garage, which unfortunately also like kind of shadows things that are happening to actual people with their homes and stuff. So I was like, wow, Silicon Valley way ahead of its time. Kind of a dark note. Sorry, I think we were going for more light there. I kind of turned it a little dark, but they really kind of hitting it.
Mike Judge hits. It's a Mike Judge show.
Is it? That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, I'm watching all of the new King of the Hill stuff. I just started season 14 yesterday because season 15 just dropped. So yeah, Mike Judge, yeah, he's on top of it.
Yeah. Office Space, Silicon Valley, Idiocracy. He's had a lot to say about just the way culture is. And with that, I think we're going to call it for a close this week. We had an extra special time going through some financial history, going through some obviously weird, sketchy marketing, self-promo, self-own blogs from OpenAI. It's a strange world we're in. Of course, the regular stories where AI just messes everything up. And finally, just a reminder to just write code like a normal human being. And with that, thank you all so much. We had a lot of participation in the comments. I couldn't respond to all of them this time, but we appreciate you hanging out with us so much. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. This is episode 5, so we're going to come up on maybe double-digit episodes pretty soon, sooner than you'd think. And once again, this is the AI Psychosis podcast, proudly presented by SLS.Guru, where we help people do sensible things in the cloud and write code like normal human beings. Joining me as always, Ryan, thank you so much. Jonathan, thank you so much. Almir, thank you so much. And I am Paul Chin Jr. And with that, cheers, peace. See y'all later.